Hello, BookTube. It's Tuesday. I've uploaded a long video on poetry books, but I thought I'd do a tag. Last week, Steve Donoghue did a tag called the Vacation Book Tag. I was not tagged into it, but I've seen a few people do it, and there's some interesting things about it, so I'll give it a try. Let's see. Number one is what's your favorite book about somebody taking a vacation? Now, I had to think about this, but Steve mentioned The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arnim, and that is a great book, and I have read that several times, so that did come to mind immediately. Another book by James Hilton, Goodbye, Mr. Chips. It's not particularly a vacation book, but there is a vacation scene in it where he goes to Greece early. It's quite a while since I've read it, but I have read it a few times, and it is something that I really, really enjoy. So those would be two. And question two, do you read travel writing, and if so, favorites? I have done, and I think I'll distinguish between travel writing and exploration. There is a fine line, I suppose, there. But I have, and a fine line would be, I guess, Freya Stark, which I really like, or I used to like. Well, I still like, I'm sure, but I haven't read her in a number of years. I just sort of looked her up, and I didn't realize that she lived till 1993. She was over 100 years old. Amazing. She traveled throughout the Middle East, and books. I had quite a few of her books, and I really enjoyed reading those. And I'm trying to think of other things, but they're all sort of hinging on exploration, because what comes to mind is Richard Burton, Livingston, and other explorers in Africa and the Middle East. Burckhardt, but these are more explorers. But I guess they're travel as well, because they are traveling. Now, what are your books on vacation rituals? Don't particularly have any. If you're talking about vacation, I've really had very few vacations ever. I usually go somewhere, or I have gone somewhere, but the last time I think I really took sort of a vacation was a couple weeks. I went to York in England here. And that must have been about 6 years ago. I was just recovering from having shingles twice, the second time in my left eye, and so I wasn't quite up to par. It was November, but I had already booked everything pre-hand, so I went. I did enjoy myself, and I took a few books with me. I took some P.G. Wodehouse, and a book of Sherlock Holmes stories. It wasn't any one particular one. It was just a collection of Sherlock Holmes stories. The P.G. Wodehouse one was Jeeves and Wooster, and another one was the golf story, The Oldest Member. Just some short stories. And ritual-wise, I don't know. For then, it was, I just, because it was November, so short days, I would be out and about in York, and then I'd come back to my bed and breakfast, and I would read a bit in the evening. I'd listen to some radio, and then just sort of do the same thing over the next day. Other times, when I was in 1991, I did an archaeological field school in Jordan, and I stayed in Amman at the ACOR Center, the American Center of Oriental Research. And this is where another question will come up in a little while. But and then I spent 2 weeks in Egypt. I suppose that was a vacation more so, even though I did do a little bit of excavating for the first week. The second week, I spent in a Cairo jail cell. I had a few, I took a few books with me when I went to my field school. I had City by Clifford D. Simak. I had Georgia Boy by Erskine Caldwell. And I had the Penguin edition of Herodotus Histories. And when I went to Egypt, I had those with me as well. But when I was out at the pyramids and so forth, I usually carried around Herodotus with me. And one day, I visited several times the pyramids of Giza, and it was sort of mid-morning, and there was a taxi driver that I would use occasionally, but when he'd see me, he would, because he knew I was Canadian, so all he would scream across wherever I was, Canada Dry. That's he knew Canada Dry, he knew Bryan Adams, and Celine Dion. So one good thing anyway, Canada Dry. But anyway, that's he would scream. That's what he called me, was Canada Dry. So he took me to Saqqara, taxi to Saqqara, and he dropped me off. I figured I'd figure out or call him, or I had some other numbers that I could call to call for a taxi. I had a phone that would work just briefly in Egypt, and so but I decided to walk across the desert from Saqqara to Memphis, the ancient capital city. However, I didn't realize that there was a military installation on the way. So I stumbled upon that, and I spent a week in Egyptian jail cell until I could get basically I just didn't have enough cash on me to get out. that's basically all it was. So that was it. Wasn't nothing to write home about, but it was an experience, I must say that. Food wasn't that good. But I read Herodotus from cover to cover over the week and started it again, I think. But anyway, rituals, yeah, I don't know. Jail cell, Cairo, Herodotus, is that a ritual? Maybe. What is your favorite book you read first while on vacation? I can't think. Well, when I was in Jordan, in Amman, at the American Center for Oriental Research, they had a little room with a whole bunch of old paperbacks that people have left that stayed there, archaeologists, scholars that have left. And there was a lot of P.G. Wodehouse, so I read through those while I was there. There was Tom Sharp, which I really like as a writer as well, and some Kingsley Amis, so I read all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure which one of those would have been something that was new to me. I can't remember specifically for that. But have you ever light-fingered a book from a vacation stay? Well, no, because, I haven't really stayed many places. When I was in York, yes, they had some books at the bed and breakfast, but I just wasn't interested in any of them. I had a look at them as I would being interested in books, but there was nothing there. I didn't take anything from Acor because I'd read it, and most of them I'd read already earlier. And there was nowhere in the Egyptian jail cell to lift the book. Number 6, some of your favorite books set in exotic locales. Now that's going to be a little difficult. In some ways, one of them is Brideshead Revisited by Evelyn Waugh. Because when I read it, there's allusions and little bits with Venice, which I really like. Never been to Venice, and there was Oxford, and I really, but I have since been to Oxford quite often. Not for the last, it's been about 4 years now, but it's only, I can hop on a bus and be there in about 2.5 hours from where I live. So, and it's a difficult one because there aren't that many places that I really call exotic, because I don't think of, because the people who live there, it's not exotic. I'm just trying to find here. I can't. I was trying to remember the title of a book by James Mitch. Well, there's a couple. There's The Source, which I thought was great. I read that. Not to me was a exotic location, but then I didn't go to Israel. I was ejected from it. Well, that's another story. I could go back, I think, to Egypt. There's no problem with that, but I doubt I may not be able to go back to Israel. There was a time where, when you had passport, if you want to go to Arabic countries, you would you don't really want to have a stamp for Israel in your passport. So at that time, there was, like, you'd put a little slip of paper in, and they would stamp that slip of paper that was sort of loosely put into your passport, and then you could discard it. However, when I went, they decided to stop that and make a example. So I don't know if me and a few of us were the first, or it was first day, I don't know. We were made example of, so we were not allowed to go to Israel. So, but as far as I know, and I was told that I would not be able to go back to Israel, but Egypt, I can't see any problem, because it was just, like I say, it was, anyway. The other Michener novel is The Covenant. Yeah, I just couldn't think of the name of it. It's set in South Africa. It's a generational and historical novel about South Africa, and that, to me, in some ways, is the exotic location, because I really would love to travel. I'd love to go to South Africa. There's places I'd like to see, especially Rorke's Drift and Isandlwana, and a number of other places, and even further up into Zimbabwe. I'd love to see the ruins of Great Zimbabwe and Victoria Falls. However, I just learned a little while ago that Victoria Falls dried up last year, so may not be able to get to see it. Okay, what's the next? The next one. Yeah, exactly. Do you think the coronavirus will kill us all? No. We will. What was the last book you read while on vacation? That would probably be either a Woodhouse book when I went to York, or the Sherlock Holmes short stories, but I can't remember which one was the last one that I had read. And I think I went through. Did I get them all? Yes, I did. And number 9, tag people. Again, I'm not great at tagging. Eventually we'll get there, I'm sure. But yeah, no, this was an interesting tag for Tuesday, and now you know my criminal past, or some of my criminal past. Well, I'll just put it that way. But yeah, no, it was fun, and it made me think, because I've been struggling all the way through this because I really, really want to put in the exploration stuff and travel, or things like Cobbett's rides, or Defoe's travel, and those are travels, but I suppose they're travels. Yeah, those are more travels than David Livingston or Mungo Park, or any of the others, Richard Burton, Burkhart, or any of them going through the Middle East. And yeah, I've enjoyed those and still enjoy those. I've just ordered, actually, Daniel Defoe's travel through the what is it? Yeah, it's a travel through the island of Great Britain or something like that. I forget now. Sorry, because I've seen it and it becomes different titles occasionally. But I've ordered a Folio Society edition that looks quite nice, and I'm hoping that'll come shortly, and I'll show it on here. But anyway, that's my Tag Tuesday, and if I can find other tags, I will try to do Tag Tuesday. But I've also said I would try to do Friday Reads, but I've been failing on that as well. But I will try. Anyway, have a good reading week, BookTube, and enjoy your travels. Bye.